With an overwhelming number of witch hazel cultivars to choose from in a range of colours and different cultivars of different sizes and different habits, it can be tricky to choose one if you're just looking to select a witch hazel to grow at home. So I thought it'd be nice to take a little walk around RHS Garden Wisley, and I'll point out a few of my favourites. So this is Hamamelis intermedia pallida, and it's probably the best known of all the witch hazels, certainly one of the most popular yellow cultivars. And its popularity is really due to the fact that it is an outstanding garden plant. It's super reliable, very floriferous, a great bright yellow, I would describe it as a sort of highlighter yellow, that really stands out in the winter garden, and performs reliably every year with great fragrance. What makes Hamamelis pallida particularly special for us at Wisley is it actually originated here as a seedling, and that original tree is growing up on Battleston Hill in the woodland garden. I think if I was to choose one orange flowered cultivar, it would be this, Hamamelis Aphrodite. It's a very large flower with long filament-like petals, and for me the scent is what makes this such a great cultivar. A really rich citrusy scent that complements the colour of the flowers nicely. The witch hazels we grow in gardens are a hybrid of two species, and those two species are Hamamelis mollis, which comes from China, and Hamamelis japonica from Japan. And mollis is yellow, whereas japonica, or the Hamamelis intermedia cross, was a sort of dark orangey red colour, and that is what introduced the oranges and the reds to the range of colours that we grow today. So besides yellow and orange, there are a number of much darker red flowered cultivars, and these are really quite remarkable for their richness of colour. This is Hamamelis Ru Ruin, but there are many in this sort of colour range. Something to mention with these red flowered cultivars, sighting is really important, because with the very dark coloured petals, they can sometimes be lost on a dull winter day like this. So either you need to cross your fingers and get a nice blue sky, plenty of low winter sunshine shining through the petals, or in sort of perhaps more typical British weather conditions in February, I'd recommend planting them with a backdrop of dark conifers to act as a background and show off these red flowers. Another favourite witch hazel of mine, flowering slightly later in the season, extending the Hamamelis season nicely, is Hamamelis Bonstead Gold. And what I like about this cultivar is these very long petals, which give this really quite impressive effect with these large clusters of flower, and this really bright gold colour, which is such a warm colour on a cold day. Hamamelis are usually sold as grafted plants, in which the sort of desirable cultivar, in this case Bonstead Gold, is grafted onto a sort of parent rootstock, and usually that's one of the American species, Hamamelis virginiana. But as with all grafted plants, one thing to watch is suckers, which appear from below the graft. And as you can see on this plant here, you've got two young whippy shoots that have appeared last season, and they're coming from below that graft union. What you have to be careful for is that these can grow with alarming vigour and perhaps even take over from the plant, the cultivar, that you bought in the first place. So the best thing to do is, when they're small like this, keep an eye on them, and they can be pulled off from the rootstock, as cutting them would sometimes promote further growth from below the graft. So Hamamelis are in nature woodland edge plants, and in order to get the best from them in the garden, it's important to try and replicate that as best as we can. So they like some degree of shade, part shade, maybe shade for half the day, and that's worth considering when siting your witch hazel. They like a moisture retentive soil with plenty of organic matter, although in some cases they can tolerate some degree of lime. They grow best on a neutral to acid soil. One thing that witch hazels really hate is drying out in summer, so when you plant them, it's important to add a lot of organic matter to the soil to help retain moisture. Besides watering in summer, the best thing you can do is mulch them thickly with organic matter in summer. I think there's a sort of common misconception that Hamamelis won't tolerate pruning of any kind. That's entirely a myth. These are really tough, quite forgiving shrubs, and with a bit of judicious pruning, you can keep them as really quite compact shrubs, kept below the height of this prunus behind me and planted in a great group and pruned regularly every year, they make a real impact over a relatively small area. So what we would do here at Wisley is, as soon as they've finished flowering, we see this extension growth that will have been put on after flowering last year, and we'd perhaps take these sort of 30 centimetre long growths back to 1 or 2 buds beyond where it flowered, and from which point it would grow again next year and be pruned back. So it's a way of keeping these plants much more compact. Although most Hamamelis will make large shrubs if left to grow to their own devices, there are a few cultivars that should be singled out for their slightly slower growing habit, which makes them suitable for smaller gardens, and Hamamelis Angeli is one of them. Unfortunately, not a very well-known cultivar, perhaps on account of the fact it is slow growing, but that very fact is what makes it good in a small situation. This is a probably 20-30-year-old plant, and it's maybe no more than 2 metres by 2 metres, which by Witch Hazel standards is relatively small, and although it's not perhaps the easiest cultivar to obtain, worth pointing out for that reason. I wanted to draw your attention to this cultivar just to showcase the range of forms and habits that Hamamelis can take. This is Hamamelis Sunburst, which is an excellent cultivar for exactly that, for its habit. It's yellow flowered, although not really doing its thing at the moment. It's among the yellows, most of them are large, very spreading shrubs, which can be quite difficult to accommodate in smaller gardens, whereas Sunburst, with its very upright vase-shaped habit, would make it much easier to sort of co-plant with other small shrubs and perennials in a smaller space. So I hope this has shown what a wonderful addition witch hazels make to any winter garden, and given you a taster of the range of colours and forms there are out there to choose from, and above all else shown that there is a witch hazel, a Hamamelis cultivar, for every situation.